today. Are you familiar with Bach flower therapy in general?
I'm not.
You're not? Okay.
I recently met a friend called Danny, I think he knows.
Daniel Carroll. Okay, yes.
So I got interested in knowing more.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, well, that group works intensively with Bach, yeah. All right, so this is the fifth of a series of talks that we're doing on Bach flower therapy. So the first four parts, so the first part was primarily an introduction to what is called the rescue remedy, which is one of the most primary and the most widely used Bach flower combinations. Then the next three talks were about certain groups of remedies. This is in fact the last in terms of the emotional groups. After this we will move on to combinations and personality types in Bach. So just to give a quick overview to bring you up to speed, Bach flower therapy is where there are 38 flowers which were identified originally by Dr. Edward Bach in the UK. The system's about over 80 years old now. It's still considered alternative medicine in the sense that we still don't have proof in terms of how exactly does it work, but it's been proven to work very well. So the way the flowers, the combination bottles or even the remedy bottles are made is the flowers are grown in specific orchards where the remedies are produced, and depending on the climate and depending on the location of where the orchard is, the flowers are either boiled in water or they're simply left in the sun in distilled water, and then the flowers are taken out. So even if they're boiled, the flowers are taken out. The water is the mother tincture. And then that's further diluted and then bottled, and that's what is sold. So in effect, there is no chemical component in the remedy. It's largely the energy of the flowers. So in that sense, it operates very similar to homeopathy. Difference being there's no potentization here. Like in homeopathy, you can increase the potency of the medicine. Here, there's no increasing of potency. There's virtually no chemical component. So in that sense, it's more about how frequently can you have the remedies rather than how much do you have it. So usually when you have remedies, whether you're drinking it with water or even if you're applying it, you would just use a couple of drops. It's not that you're having a huge amount of it. It's just that the more frequently you use it, the faster the results. Yeah? And the remedies by themselves would work at the emotional layer, not directly at the physical layer. So even as we use them to cure physical ailments, the impact is first on the emotional layer and then the physical healing ensues after that. So those are the 7 emotion groups as Dr. Bach classified them. So there are 38 remedies in all, 38 flowers in all that he had identified. And he had very clearly stated that while there are millions of other flowers around, not all of them are meant for the human spectrum. So there could be certain flowers where, for example, you would see rose or jasmine or hibiscus and all of that, which are often used in various ways, even in terms of consumption, internal consumption. But according to Dr. Bach, there are only these 38 which are in the human spectrum in terms of healing. Not all should be consumed directly. And something like a rose or a hibiscus is fine. It is consumed and it's not supposed to have had any negative effects. But in terms of healing properties, it's recommended that you don't experiment with flowers as much. Although there have been over the years what you might term experiments in terms of looking at other flowers. In fact, very recently we looked at the bougainvillea flowers to see what the impact is. But yeah, it takes a long time to prove how the impact is and where does it really land in terms of the body and the emotion. So here we're looking largely at the 38 flowers which Dr. Bach originally recommended. And so we've done we've done 4 of these 7 groups. We've done fear, uncertainty, loneliness and despondency over the last few lectures. So today we're looking at the other 3. So we're looking at insufficient interest, oversensitivity and overcare. Those are the three emotion groups that we're looking at. So let's start with the first group, which is a group of remedies. There are 7 of them, 7 flowers, 7 remedies, which are used for, in general, what one would think is insufficient interest in life, or just lack of interest in things around, and therefore being unable to engage with life in a positive, active manner. So Clematis is one such remedy. It's a good remedy for grounding a person in terms of the present. So very useful where you find people who are either in general unhappy with circumstances and therefore don't want to engage in the situation around, or in general just feel disinterested, kya rakha hai life mein kind of a situation.
It's a symptom also of depression.
It could lead to depression eventually. If the thing sustains. I mean, at this stage, the clematis stage is not a stage of depression, but yes, if the person sustains in that stage, it's possible that you further go down into a stage of depression. But here it's just a thing where because I'm unhappy with my environment, work or family or whatever environment I'm in, I tend to either escape into my fantasy world and I'm thinking of my own things and living in my thoughts, or I'm just living and not really responding. Routine work kind of a thing that's happening. So Clematis helps in terms of grounding a person, emotionally grounding and saying, hey, this is my reality, I have to deal with it and I may as well do something positive about it. So it anchors the emotional state in a way that there is extreme awareness and clarity about the presence, in the sense that I get very alert to the fact that, okay, this is my situation and it's very real for me, and therefore I ought to now act and deal with it as it is instead of escaping into my thoughts. So it brings an extreme alertness.
Done by the teacher or the person?
But it's not so much of a teacher here. The remedies, you can, if you're doing self-administration, you can do it yourself as well. If you're healing others, look at the symptoms with them and see how it works. The remedies by themselves wouldn't cause harm in terms of physical harmful side effects. It's just that, yeah, they do, if you're taking it over a period of time in a sustained way, they do cause personality shifts, and therefore you need to be aware of what's happening. I mean, it's not going to make a person destructive or anything in any way, but it's better that you're aware of what you're doing here.
As you told, here a person becomes aware.
Yes.
In more present, so he will think, he will find difficult to accept also sometimes.
Possible, but yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the sense that it could be an escape route that the person is living in the thought world, fantasy world. So when you come back to reality, sometimes it's not very great. But yeah, you can always support the person because all these remedies have a positive impact on the emotion, in the sense it brings you to a state where you say, all right, I can deal with it. Right? It may be difficult, it may not, the situation won't become easy, but the person can deal with it.
As you told, dealing with personality changes, because what personality the person has,
Yes.
and the new personality
Yeah.
that he has to deal with, I suppose.
Yeah, that is, in fact, more than the person, what I've often observed is people around the person have to deal with it. Because suddenly you realize that people become very assertive and very outspoken sometimes and all of that, and then people around are very concerned about what's happening. This was a very meek, submissive person. Why is he or she talking up so much? So, yeah, people around also need to deal with it as much as the person does. But yeah, back to Clematis, this is a good remedy for grounding and extreme alertness and clarity in terms of the present. Personally, I found that this is a good remedy for focus. Like if you want to concentrate on some task or read a very boring document which has to be read or something like that, it helps to focus in a very clear way. I would think it's, in my experience, I found it useful for children before exams, where you want them to focus and sit and read one thing for an hour or so. I find that a pretty useful remedy there. indirectly fosters creativity in terms of thinking up new ideas or innovating something, because it grounds you in the present, and because there is no escape, you start finding out ways to deal with the present. So in that sense, when I say fosters creativity, it doesn't make one an artist, but it helps to ground yourself and then focus in the clear thing. If you find a person who's it's a good remedy for what is termed as ordinary fainting, in the sense somebody who just gets tired and faints, loses consciousness, or has a tendency for slight low BP kind of a situation where people tend to lose consciousness. It's a good remedy to awaken the person through that. And just apply a little on the lips and it usually helps. Yeah. And in general also, if you find yourself or a person getting into a state of being very listless and sleepy and no physical energy to deal with things, which is a very summer state in this kind of a weather, you'll find a lot of people, even animals, for being in that kind of a state, it's a good remedy to use. Okay. So yeah, for those of you who are not familiar, when I say use remedies, you can either put about 3 to 4 drops in a glass of water. I mean, the original recommended combination is 30 ml of water and 3 to 4 drops. It doesn't matter even if you're diluting it further. If you want, you can ingest it directly also, where some people don't like the taste of alcohol, so they prefer not to do it, so they use water with it, but either way is fine.
Clematis is name of the flower, or
Clematis is the name of the flower. Yeah.
this particular flower?
Yes. So all the remedies are named after the flowers that they are. So the remedies are basically, what they do is they pick the flowers and they drop it in distilled water and either expose it to sunlight for a day or boil it, depending on the weather conditions. They choose the method.
These are all in the UK.
They manufacture it in India as well. That I know of one facility in Mangalore. Some place goes to Delhi as well. Madras as well. Huh? Okay, I've not sourced it from there.
All the 38.
Not all of them. A lot of them are. Like I know, for example, chicory grows in the north. There's larch as well to some degree. So there are a few of them which grow. But some of these orchards also grow plants which are not native to that place. For I think the one in Mangalore, they grow pretty much everything. I mean, in the sense, the plant is not native to India, but they managed to figure out how to grow it here. So,
Do they use combinations of flowers or only one?
the remedies themselves are just one single flowers. You can make combinations out of it depending on what you're trying to use it for. There's only one combination which is has a standard manufacturing thing, which is the rescue remedy, which is what you might call an emergency remedy, for someone who's met with an accident or had a fall or there's a shock kind of a thing. Their rescue is a good thing to use. But otherwise, all the other 38 remedies are single flower remedies. You can mix if you wish to. Yeah. So, Clematis in general is a remedy for grounding. It's a remedy for alertness to the present, and in that sense, it brings back interest in life by making a person more engaged in the process. From a physical use point of view, if you think you're in a state of being very drowsy, sleepy for no reason, that's a good remedy to wake up. The next one in the same emotion group, lack of interest, is honeysuckle. Honeysuckle is used from the lack of interest perspective, in the sense honeysuckle is good for people who are stuck with the past but with the good memories of the past. Life was so nice when I was a child, or it was so beautiful when I was in this relationship, or it was so great when I was living in Singapore. So, that nice thing about the past which you're not able to let go, not the bad bit, but the good things about the past, which handicaps you in the sense that you're not able to focus on the present because you're always thinking of how good it was at some point in time. So honeysuckle is a good remedy to use in that context, where a person you find is very attached to good memories, and in that process becomes very disengaged with the present. From a physical point of view, it's a good remedy for constipation. I mean, the whole idea of honeysuckle is letting go. And I mean, constipation is primarily a thing of the body, where the body says it doesn't want to let go of anything that's intaken, right? So it's both the emotional and the physical things match for every remedy, though it's the same thing. So honeysuckle in that sense is a good remedy for constipation, especially if used it well for elderly people who tend to have constipation after a certain age. It works pretty well if you're able to have a glass of it before you sleep at night. These are available in most homeopathic drugstores. Yeah.
Typically, what's the cost?
If you're buying tinctures, it's about, how much is it now? About 100, I think 100 or 150 per bottle. I think the standard 30 ml.
Size-wise.
Yeah, size-wise. I think that standard 30 ml thing is 100, if I'm not wrong.
What is the recommended dosage for constipation?
But if you're using about 30 ml of water, 3-4 drops, that's, yeah.
And once a day.
Just before you sleep, so in the morning you're eased off.
I think you need to have more drops. Because,
It's more about the consistency. If you're able to do it every day, and yeah, initially if it's an extreme case, yeah, you might want to do it more frequently. Yeah. And if you want to, it doesn't hurt if you're doing it more often. It's all right. I mean, it won't go to the other extreme of loose motion. It'll still be all right.
So in this case, it's directly affecting on physical level or the emotional and then physical?
See, Bach remedies in general always hit the emotional layer first. Even if you're trying to heal a physical thing, it will still hit the emotional layer.
It's mentioned as constipation. It's at physical level.
Yeah, I'm talking of the physical impact of it, but what happens is it helps the brain
The
to...
cause.
Yeah, it triggers the brain center which is holding on and says, let go, it's all right. And in that process, the brain then transmits the message and the body eases off. So, all of these work first at the emotional layer. Even if you're directly trying to heal a physical injury or a scratch, it will still first work with the emotional layer.
Manifestation of something that
Yeah.
is holding.
Constipation ultimately, I mean, in fact, all diseases in that sense are psychosomatic. So, it deals at that layer. Also, a good remedy for nostalgia, for homesickness, for for people who travel and then they're unable to adjust to a new place. It's a good remedy if you think the cause is about being homesick or not being able to let go of the past and then accept the present. But honeysuckle very specifically is for the letting go of the good things of the past. There is walnut which looks at the bad past, bad thing, but this is the positive past, as one would call it. Then you've got wild rose. There are several varieties of it. They use one specific variety of wild rose to make the remedies. Wild rose is a remedy for, if I have to use one term, a remedy for apathy, indifference. क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Why do I have to do anything about life? That kind of a state or a situation. Wild rose is a good remedy for that in the sense that it anchors a person and says you can't not do anything, you have to do something about life. So, where you find a person being very resigned to circumstances and saying, nothing I do is going to make a difference, so why should I even try? That kind of emotional state, wild rose is a good one to deal with, look at. Extreme sense of resignation, where you find a person not able to take responsibility or not able to take charge and say, okay, I will get this sorted out. That's a good remedy. On the physical side, and of course, when I say the physical side, I'm talking purely from the experience and from whatever I've seen people work with, because that part of it was not as much documented by Dr. Bach. He spoke mainly of the emotional layer. Wild rose is, I would think, the only remedy that works with the teeth and the gums. I've not seen any other remedy work at the dental layer. This works well where people going through root canals and stuff like that. It works very well if you're able to apply it to the gums. Yeah.
What does it do? Does it avoid the decay of the root? Avoid dryness of the root?
It helps in terms of dealing with the pain part of it, and it seems to heal the thing faster.
Do you have to just rub it or put a drop?
If you're able to bear that alcoholic thing, then rub it. Otherwise, even with water, just gargle with it. That's also fine. Because especially if you've done a procedure, it hurts if you put alcohol directly there. So a little diluted may be better. And you can swallow it also. It won't hurt. It's just that it may hurt if you directly use the tincture. So you can put it directly on the tooth, on the gums. It seems to work very well. Okay, olive. Olive has the name, or even the olives in general, so olive branch suggests it's a remedy for calming a person down, where you feel very irritated, frustrated, very hassled with something, or also very exhausted. It's primarily the physical manifestation, according to Dr. Bach. It's a remedy for exhaustion, where you feel very tired after a lot of effort, either physically or mentally. The olive is a remedy to regain that vitality and get back into action. At a physical layer, it helps over a period of time, of course, it helps to deal with dryness of the skin and wrinkles and all of that. It usually helps. If you're able to apply a bit of olive with water just before you sleep, you normally tend to wake up with fresher looking skin or face. But in general, it's a very good remedy wherever you find someone very hassled or very disturbed. It's a good remedy to calm down. Just be centered. It doesn't energize you as much directly, but then it helps you be centered enough to be able to take action again. If you're looking for extreme physical energy, then oak is a better one. Oak was something that we discussed last time, if you guys remember. Yeah, oak is pure strength, physical strength. But this is more just to regain that energy after tiredness. It doesn't give strength as much as it gives some amount of vitality. So that's oak. White chestnut, lovely remedy. It's what is called a remedy for mental congestion. There are too many thoughts and too many decisions to be made, too many mental things to deal with at a mental level. White chestnut sort of helps to separate all of it and say, all right, this is here, this is here, this is here. It declutters it. It's like a cleansing exercise mentally. It helps in terms of white chestnut is a good remedy for people who get very hassled by conflict or arguments and can't deal with it. Some people are okay to deal with it, they'll go face it up front and get it sorted. Where some just don't like the idea of conflict or disharmony around them. White chestnut is for those people to say that it's all right, I will go there, I will deal with that situation and get it sorted. It gives that will to say that things can be sorted and it doesn't have to be all that bad. On a physical level, I found it very good for insomnia, for headaches that usually come with mental tensions. Also helps, in my opinion, in terms of repetitive dreams which tend to be hassling. I've used it well in that context where I wouldn't say nightmares, but sometimes you have these series of dreams after which you wake up tired because you've worked so much in those dreams. White chestnut helps to get rid of that. I'm not sure if the dreams go away, but at least I don't wake up remembering them. So in that sense, it's good for calm, peaceful sleep. And then there is mustard. Mustard is, you spoke of depression earlier when you were speaking of clematis. If you're tending towards depression, mustard is a better remedy than clematis. Clematis is just a state of irritation with the whole situation around you. This is where you suddenly feel low and you can't quite identify why. Just a general sense of feeling low, just a general sense of depression without knowing what the cause is about. In fact, the last time when we spoke about despondency and depression, if you know the cause, then yes, you've got gentian, you've got gorse, you've got sweet chestnut, all of those, which deal with specific types and specific causes of depression. Mustard is where you don't know, bas aise hi lag raha hai, just feeling low. Right? There's a sudden depression or negativity, no cause known for it. Mustard is an instant lift up kind of a remedy. It's if you look at most Bach, in fact all of them, where if you study the characteristic of the plant and the flower, you will also figure out why they are used in the way they are used. Mustard traditionally is a weed. It grows anywhere where it finds space. Normally you would find it on roadsides and where close to farms. It will pollinate itself and start growing on the roadsides even where it's not meant to. It's a sort of a thing which starts growing on you without a reason. It doesn't need anchors, it doesn't need support, it just grows. So again, the flowers act to deal with that sort of a situation, where you suddenly have a bad mood without any kind of a reason. Mustard tends to push that down. If you're studying it in depth also, for those of you who are working intensely with it, also look at the color of the flowers. It helps to calibrate, because most yellow flowers work with the solar plexus. So any inner child issues, most of them would work with that. All your blue flowers tend to work with the throat and the heart region. More the throat, but also the heart. So and yeah, this is a lovely one, Chestnut Bud. Chestnut Bud is great for breaking patterns, habits. Typically used for a person who's what you might term a slow learner. It tends to make the same mistakes over and over again, but doesn't learn and keeps going back into the same situation. Chestnut Bud helps to break that pattern then and there. Okay. It's a good remedy if you're working with yourself. You can use it when you're trying to shift habits or shift even belief systems. It helps to use it along with your affirmations or thoughts or whatever else you're using for it. Chestnut Bud is a great remedy to break that pattern. Useful also with kids who are very slow in terms of learning response, and you want to teach them to do something better. It could be as basic as toilet training to teaching them how to write or read or whatever. Even for animals, if you're training animals in the initial training pets, it's a good remedy if you're trying to build a habit and break old patterns and all of that. So it's a very useful remedy in terms of breaking patterns. Wherever you find you're getting stuck with a certain belief that, and the belief could be as simple as saying, oh, I can't handle this, or I don't like that kind of a person, or I don't like going to this place. Any repetitive kind of a thing. Chestnut Bud helps you instantly break that pattern and say, it's all right, new situation, new thing, new person, new time. Go deal with it in a fresh way. So it's a good remedy to use there. Even if you're using it for something like let's say overcoming smoking or any kind of habit, it's a good habit breaker. Helps to use it as frequently as possible every time the thought of that habit comes up. So if I want to, let's say, break my habit of smoking, every time I feel I want that cigarette, helps to pop in a drop of Chestnut Bud. So the more frequently you do it, the easier it gets to break the habit.
You can use multiple dosages in one day.
Yeah. It's in fact with Bach remedies, it is the frequency of the usage which will give you the better results. So it's not so much of how much you have at one point. It could be a very minuscule amount, but the more frequent you use it, the more the brain centers get triggered, and the more they get triggered, the easier the shifts happen. And that applies to all the remedies here. So if you're consciously trying to break a pattern, it's a remedy that you should keep handy with you. Every time the thought enters, break it instantly. Right? So that was the first group, which was about insufficient interest in life. The second group we're talking about today is oversensitivity to influences and ideas, largely external influences and ideas, where this is where we're talking of people who are inherently strong but also very sensitive to what others would say or what the world would think, or what other people's opinions are. You may not really abide by it, not necessarily that you're conforming, but at the same time it probably hurts if you're dealing with something negative as an external influence. So there are 4 remedies here. The first is agrimony. It's also a type remedy. A type remedy would mean there are certain type remedies which classify personality types. Okay, so agrimony is one of the type remedies. It's an agrimony type is a person who's literally a very a cheerful looking kind of a person, the life of the party kind of a person, extremely cheerful, jovial, but at the same time extremely worrying and very sensitive. It doesn't really show it outside, finds it very difficult to express emotions. So when you come in contact with a person, you may find that, oh, that person is perfectly fine and smiling and cheerful and joking, but actually something is eating the person away. So that's the agrimony type. And agrimony as a remedy helps to communicate real feelings and it helps a person to voice out his or her emotions very clearly. So in that sense, for anyone who gets disturbed by conflict and can't voice it out, agrimony is a good remedy to have. It is a good, again, the agrimony type is typically also the person who tends towards substance abuse, which could be alcohol or smoking or drugs or whatever, any kind of a substance abuse, but somebody who, because he or she can't express emotions, tends to find other ways of expression, which tends to be substance abuse. So agrimony helps to deal with that pattern also, break that pattern. I've found that on a physical level it works well for back problems, back pains or any spinal kind of problems. Agrimony is a good remedy to have. It's a very powerful remedy in the sense that you will often find a lot of regular users of Bach saying don't use agrimony too early in the game. In the sense, first help the person calm down and deal with things and think about what he or she really wants and then give agrimony. And I've seen a couple of cases where agrimony too early on has made the person go voice out emotions in a way that's very disruptive. Right? So let's say I've hated you for 20 years and have not had the courage to say it. A few drops of agrimony and I've said whatever I had to say to you, and in that process disrupted the relationship, because it gives you an extreme sense of extreme need for communication, and therefore that you tend to voice out whatever is on your mind. So in that sense it helps to really talk to the person and see, are you really ready for this and do you really need it, and then take the remedy in an aware manner. At least let the person know that this could be the consequence, and are you prepared to deal with that consequence. A very powerful remedy otherwise. I would usually suggest use agrimony in combination with Star of Bethlehem and mustard. Those tend to balance it out. Okay, agrimony by itself is very strong otherwise. It won't be negative, it's just that it's strong. So the Star of Bethlehem is in a sense similar to olive. It's a nice calming meditative kind of a remedy. So it helps to balance out the impact pretty well. If taken regularly, I mean, again, now here I'm talking purely from my experience with the remedies. I've found agrimony pretty much an equivalent, a physical trigger equivalent of Kundalini activation. The sort of activation that happens when you're cleansing the Kundalini and activating the nadis. It pretty much has a similar effect if you're taking it at a very regular level.
So this is in combination agrimony, Star of Bethlehem.
Ideally, I use it with Star of Bethlehem and mustard. I mean, it's not a must, but I would suggest do it because it balances it out. It doesn't force a person to communicate in a way that could be disruptive. It sort of nicely cushions the impact. But if you want to apply it directly, it's fine. It won't harm you. It's just that if you're ingesting it for a particular purpose, try and balance it out.
What about others? What about others?
Yeah, I mean, purely from the other's perspective, balance it out. Otherwise, you can take it on your own and face the consequence.
Either you have to apply it or consume it. How do you?
It depends. You can see with some people they don't like to consume it purely because there's alcohol in it and they don't like to have that. And some people just don't like the taste of it. Also, if you're healing a particular physical part, it's better that you apply it directly. Even if you consume it, it'll have the impact, but it's sooner if you have if I have a scratch, then I would want crabapple directly on the skin rather than ingesting it. Even otherwise, if you think for any reason a person doesn't want to consume the energies, just apply it on the palms. Any remedy that you're using. Right, so that's acrimony. Then there is centauri. Centauri is for people who would go all out to serve the world, but they wouldn't take care of themselves. In that sense, they find it very difficult to say no. So even if I'm in a very bad situation and you come and ask me for help and I know I really have no bandwidth, I still can't say no. That's a centauri type. So centauri helps in terms of very slowly enhancing the assertiveness. It helps the person say no when a no has to be said. You can't keep saying yes to everything all the time. So it is for that particular purpose. For someone who keeps neglecting one's own needs and tries to save the world in the process, centauri helps to balance it out and say you're equally important and first take care of your needs so that you can. So it's the sort of a remedy which would say wear your own oxygen mask first. First wear your own mask. So in fact the message of centauri is just that, first wear your own mask, then go serve the world. So in that sense, if you have to in that process be assertive and say no to somebody, it's fine. It won't be rude to do that. I've also found it very useful for those of you who do any energy healing work. I've found it a good shield.
For the healer.
Yeah, for the healer. Like last time we said, crabapple is a good cleanser. This is a good shielder. Like if you just before opening up your aura to something, it tends to shield you pretty well. If you're having it before you heal someone, it seems to work well. Crabapple, on the other hand, is a cleanser. So once you realize that you've already exposed yourself to something and you're not feeling too good, it's having a bath with crabapple, as in bath as in a few drops in the bath water, it helps. The other one in this emotion group is walnut. Remember, honeysuckle we said is about letting go of the good things of the past. Walnut is letting go of the bad memories, the bad things, unpleasant things about the past. So in that sense it helps because it helps you, it's called a delinking remedy. So let's say I've had a bad memory about a certain kind of a place or a certain kind of a person. So every time I come across that place or a person, I have the same reaction because I think things are going to be bad. Walnut helps to delink and say, that's over, that's done and gone, this doesn't have to be bad. So in that sense, it desensitizes the person from repeating a reaction which is not really relevant now. Right? So it's very good in terms of letting go of bad memories or bad, unpleasant emotions as well. It's a good remedy to use where anytime that you're having a major change of situations in life, which could be marriage, it could be something which is physical like teething for children, puberty, where the body is going through major shifts. Walnut is a good remedy to aid that shift and say that it's okay, whatever's done in the past is gone, it's alright, it's over, now it's a new situation, and it helps to accept that new situation better by delinking it from the past.
These can be had for parent pregnancy.
This, yeah, very safe, pretty safe. So overall, yeah, good in terms of letting go. So honeysuckle is the letting go good, walnut is the letting go bad part of it. And another one in this category is holly. In one sentence, I would think it's a remedy for anger. That's where I've primarily used it. Any emotion that comes in that category of anger or leading to anger, which could be jealousy, rage, envy, suspicion, just selfishness, not having enough, that whole emotion group, holly is a good healer at the emotional layer. Very powerful in healing cancer. Because cancer is largely a lot of unexpressed bitterness and anger and resentment. Holly helps to release all of that and say, it's okay, I don't have to be angry about it. And in that sense, the body stops producing cancer cells, which it's producing because of that anger which is stored. So it's a beautiful remedy for cancer. Holly, along with walnut, also supports it beautifully. If you're specifically using it for cancer, holly and walnut, they support each other pretty well. Also, it's a good remedy at a physical layer. Anything to do with bleeding, holly is a good remedy, like a physical injury, bleeding, or if there's excessive bleeding during the menses, again, holly is a good remedy to reduce and control the bleeding pretty well. It's also, I've seen it used and work fairly okay in situations where you know a person is terminally ill and you'd rather have the person peacefully pass away. Holly and walnut, that combination helps in terms of the person being able to let go of everything, not carry forward anything in death. Just let go of everything, forgive everybody and peacefully pass on. Holly and walnut do the job pretty well. But otherwise, in general, for a person who's extremely angry all the time or suspicious or jealous of others, holly is a good remedy to balance out. So that was the second category. The third category that we're looking at is over-concern for other people. Chicory. Now, chicory is what you would call a typical mother energy remedy. In that sense, it's for a person who tends to be very critical of others, but critical from a very caring perspective, that I don't think you're good enough, you have to do better than this, why aren't you doing more? It's that for that kind of a person who's critical from that perspective, the typical possessive, argumentative mother kind of a thing. Chicory is a very good remedy for that. It eventually, if you take it over a period of time, it helps to reduce that tendency to be very opinionated and very argumentative about everything. Symptoms of chicory would be where you find a person correcting other people all the time. Even whether it's needed or not needed, or whether it's a person's area of expertise or not, you'll always find the person attempting to correct others and say, this could have been done better in a different way. So chicory is that symptom. So it's a good healer at that in that sense. For over anxiety about others, not so much fear of others. Fear of others is red chestnut, which we've spoken about earlier. This is just anxiety about others. Will my child do well? Will he secure admission here? That kind of situation. That's chicory. Physically, pretty good for cold, cough. Specifically cold works quite well. Then there's vervain. A vervain person is somebody who's got very strong opinions about things and people and everything, and they're the sort of a person who will say, I know what is to be done in every situation. That's the vervain kind of a personality. these are people who don't like to listen to advice. Typically a vervain person is a very stubborn kind of a character, doesn't want to listen to anybody else's opinions and advice, but at the same time wants to go and give it to others. That's the vervain kind of a person. Well, yeah, so vervain is, it's also for people who are, in fact all the, if you have to look at the personality types in this category, these are very energetic, strong personality types. So it's not that they're bad or depressed in any way, it's just that it tends to manifest in a way which they themselves are not comfortable with. Yeah, vervain is very domineering kind of a personality. At the same time, very energetic enough to be able to invest mental effort into things to an extreme degree. Where even where that effort is not really required, this person would go and invest that effort and then get very depressed that nobody listened to me. Yeah, extreme amount of perfection. It's very difficult to please a vervain person. Even if you do a perfect job and go and show the person, he'll find a flaw and so say that this could have been done differently. Why was it not done according to my instructions? So it's that's the vervain kind of personality. Vervain helps to balance out the overactive mind and say, it's okay, I don't have to think about everything and everyone and correct every situation. Sometimes I don't need to handle it and it's okay. It helps the person reach a state of saying, I'm secure even if I don't do too much. Vervain, the personality also comes from a space of insecurity where the person believes that if I don't do something, the situation will not be handled by others. So vervain helps to balance it out and say, okay, there are other people around the world will exist even if I don't do enough for it. So that's the vervain kind of a person. But you will find that in general the person is very strong and very energetic. The same goes with chicory. A person is very strong and concerned about everyone. Vine, again, a very strong personality, what you might call a natural leader, somebody who takes initiative all the time. That's the vine kind of a personality. You will find this person giving orders to people all the time. Whether the person is related to you or not, you will always find this person giving orders. Vine, the difference between vervain and vine is, with vine there is always a tendency and a need to persuade you to convince and adopt my views. A vervain will simply say, this is what I believe and therefore you should believe this. Right? A vine person is more likely to say, this is what I believe, why aren't you believing in this? You have to believe in this because there is a reason to it. So there is a sense of persuasion which is present in vine, where a vervain doesn't bother with that sense of persuasion. Right? So you'll find a vine personality is somebody who's constantly trying to convince and persuade others and change their viewpoints, and very uncomfortable if somebody's beliefs are very different from mine. That's a vine kind of a person. So vine as a remedy helps to again balance the person out and say it's all right if his beliefs are not my beliefs and it's okay for us to coexist. I don't have to persuade him to change according to just to match my beliefs. Both can be right at our own spaces.
And one respect other people's
Ideas and beliefs.
Okay, after taking this,
Yeah.
initially there is
Yeah. Yeah, initially the vine kind of a person is somebody who will say, how can you have a different idea or a belief than mine? I'll come and persuade you, I'll sit down with you and try and persuade and change you. Whereas vine helps to say, it's okay, you have a different belief, I have a different belief, it's fine, we'll still coexist, we can still work together. That's the impact of vine. Yeah. So in that sense, it helps to reduce that tendency to order around and tell people to change their opinions. And finally, there is beech. Beech is a very, what you might call a very critical, rigid kind of a person. Rigidity would be the word for beech. In that sense, somebody who wants military order in everything that has to be done. So if the teacup has to be in this part of the table, it has to be in this part of the table, and how have you placed it there? That's the Beach kind of a person who doesn't like any change to order, a change to discipline, with according his or her sense of discipline, that is. Yeah, yeah, the man. Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a kind of a Beach personality. And because of that personality, you will invariably find there is stiffness in the joints, there's arthritis, rheumatic issues, because of the personality type. The rigidity tends to translate into physical symptom. So Beach, again, if you find that sort of a physical symptom, it's a good remedy to use. Both ingest it. If there's extreme pain, you can also apply it to joints, knees and toes and all of that. It's a very good remedy for rheumatism, arthritis, any kind of joint issues. Where you find what do you call the lubrication of the joints sometimes going dry, Beach with olive is a good combination to use in that case. But a Beach personality is very easy to recognize. You will find the person being very rigid in terms of saying things have to be this way, no discussions. At least the wine person will get into an argument and say, chalo, let's discuss it out. Beach will say, this is it. Nothing, no discussion around it. That's Beach. And in that sense, again, it's very critical towards others. Can't appreciate others for nuts. So that's the Beach kind of a personality. And in fact, the physical symptoms are invariably very obvious. They will usually have joint problems. Right? So that's it's a good remedy for rigidity of any kind, or even indoctrination of any kind, in terms of saying this religion is bad or that place is not nice, or any kind of rigid sort of a belief. It's a good remedy to crack that rigidity and induce some amount of tolerance. So that's Beach, and there's rock water. Rock water is it's oversensitivity to others from the perspective of saying I am not doing enough. No amount of effort I put in to my relationship, let's say as a mother or a wife or a daughter or whatever, no amount of whatever I do is enough. I'm just not doing enough. I have to do more. Even if others are satisfied with what I'm doing, there is a self-judgment which says I'm not doing enough for other people, and therefore that sense of dissatisfaction with self eventually. So even if others tend to say something nice about me, I'll interpret it in a way that it's not nice. That's a rock water kind of person. And there is an internal wish to say, I wish people would think like me, I wish people would accept my ideas. Right? That's the rock water kind of a person. A person who wants flow. A person who doesn't like structures and doesn't like a sense of being bound by things. That's rock water. I mean, rock water as a flower is something that grows better in flowing water rather than in a closed kind of a pond. So it's somebody who doesn't really believe that he or she is doing enough, although everything else suggests that the person is doing enough, taking enough efforts. So rock water helps to bring in that sense of belief that, yeah, I have done my bit. After that, if things don't work, I don't have to take the onus of everything. I don't have to carry the world on my shoulders. It's all right. The world will still go on even if once in a while I slip up. That's the rock water kind of a personality. Somebody who's worried about the world and thinks I've not done enough, where there's really no connection sometimes. So that's where this one comes in. So those were the three groups today. You can of course refer to these websites. There are plenty of others as well if you want to read and experiment with the remedies. Yeah. Questions?
Any demos? Demos.
I forgot. I came from office today, so I didn't get the remedies. I usually carry a few bottles.